Night. A traffic police officer stops a battered yellow taxi in the capital of Jordan. "You are not wearing a seatbelt. This is a violation." The officer looks at the tired taxi driver and lets him go with a warning. Only the next morning does he learn that the man behind the wheel was King Abdullah, and the passengers had no idea who was driving them. But why was he driving around the city disguised as a taxi driver? Was it a strange hobby or a PR move? What was so shocking in what the passengers told him that the next day a real uproar began? And what other extravagant disguises did the king arrange? Watch the video until the end. The finale will surprise you. February 1999. Jordan is in mourning. King Hussein, who ruled for almost half a century, is dying. The country is in shock. Who will become the next ruler? Everyone expected the throne to pass to his brother Hassan, who had been prepared for the crown for decades. But 2 weeks before his death, the monarch suddenly changes everything and announces his son Abdullah as heir, a military officer who was never trained to rule, a son from his second wife, an Englishwoman educated in Britain. Many doubted him. Could this European handle an Arab kingdom? But he had a plan no one expected. Jordan in the late 1990s was a country with a weak economy, where corruption was eating everything from the inside. In hospitals, doctors demanded bribes for surgeries, officials extorted money for every document, citizens stood in lines for hours while the rich solved everything with a phone call. Customs slowed down business, and the police turned a blind eye to violations by those who paid. But King Abdullah did not know the full truth about what was happening. When you are a king, everyone lies to you. Ministers bring polished reports and talk about success. Everyone smiles and says everything is fine. But how do you learn the real truth? How do you see what is actually happening? And then Abdullah made a decision that shocked even his own security team. By that time, he had been on the throne for only half a year. The new king put on old clothes and took a video camera. The guards were shocked, but an order is an order. The king left the palace in an ordinary car without an escort. He goes to the neighboring city of Zarqa. There, he introduces himself as a journalist from local television. He interviews business owners, traders, and manufacturers. And people begin to talk. They do not recognize the king. In front of them is just a simple reporter. Customs demand bribes for every shipment. Documents take months. Without connections, you get nothing. Officials sabotage the work. They want money. Abdullah records everything, every name, every complaint, every detail, and no one recognizes the king. But this is only a warm-up. A few days later, the king realizes this is not enough. He needs to go deeper. He puts on simple clothes again and sits behind the wheel of an ordinary Jordanian taxi. Without security, just a taxi driver. For several hours, he drives passengers around the evening capital, from wealthy neighborhoods to slums, from the city center to the outskirts. Abdullah asks about their lives, and they share everything that is built up inside them. One man complains about the police extorting money. A woman talks about a hospital where doctors demand payment in an envelope. Otherwise, they will not accept her sick child. An elderly person criticizes the tax office, where officials are rude and delay paperwork. And the king simply listens, nods, and remembers every detail. And then suddenly, a traffic police officer stops him. "You are not wearing a seatbelt. This is a violation." At that moment, everything could have been exposed. The king apologizes, and the officer does not recognize him. He sees an ordinary taxi driver and says, "All right, just a warning. Do not break the rules again." Later, a palace representative confirms the truth of this story to journalists, and it spreads across the entire country. And then something begins that no one expected. A wave of dismissals. Heads of customs services, doctors who extorted money, corrupt police officers, rude officials, one after another, they lose their positions. But the king does not stop. He secretly visits the main al-Bashir hospital in Amman 3 times. The first time, he comes incognito, disguised as an ordinary visitor, and leaves in shock. Dirty wards, rude staff, patients in corridors, extortion of money. He gives the administration clear orders to fix everything. The second time, he came back 2 months later. Not a single order had been carried out. Not one. Everything was exactly the same. The third time, he arrived with the Minister of Health and began firing people. The hospital director, the chief doctor, department heads, one after another. The story spread across the country. Everyone understood that the new king was not joking. 2 years of active work passed. During this time, Abdullah carried out dozens of such operations, many of which were never made public. But the king had no intention of stopping. He continued to clean the system, again and again going out among the people. And then came another mission, this time the tax service. The king put on old clothes and a white beard. With him was his brother, Prince Ali, the commander of elite military units. They entered the tax office and stood in line. Around them were irritated people. They complained about long waiting times and bureaucracy. The king spoke with them and listened to their stories. Finally, it was his turn. Prince Ali handed over the documents for a tax refund and gave an ordinary name without titles. The official looked at them with displeasure, slowly checked the papers, and rudely said, "This is filled out incorrectly. You will have to redo it." "But everything here is correct," the prince objected. But the official shouted back, "I said it is incorrect. Fill it out again." Rudeness, arrogance, and complete disregard for an ordinary citizen. They silently filled out the documents again, and the official reluctantly accepted them. "Wait, we will call you in about 2 weeks." The king and the prince left the building and got into armored limousines with royal flags. A motorcade with flashing lights drove toward the palace. Only then did the tax office employees realize that the king himself had just visited them, and they had treated him as if he were nobody. By the end of the day, the entire capital knew. By the end of the week, the whole country knew. Over the years of such operations, Abdullah collected a massive file: names, facts, evidence. The king carried out large-scale purges. Some sources speak of several hundred officials and managers being dismissed. Almost every day, someone lost a profitable position. But the main thing is that he changed the system. Bureaucracy was simplified, procedures were accelerated, transparent queues were introduced in hospitals, and an electronic system was implemented at customs. A hotline for complaints appeared in the tax service. Newspapers wrote, "The king knows everything." Officials were afraid because any visitor could turn out to be the king. This fear forced them to work honestly. Critics say it was a well-designed PR campaign. Many dismissed officials returned to other positions a year later. The system did not change, only the packaging did. Others believe he truly changed the country, corruption decreased, and people began to believe in justice. Who is right? Everyone decides for themselves. Today, King Abdullah is 63 years old. He has ruled Jordan for 26 years. He is called one of the most progressive Arab leaders. In 2016, he was recognized as the most influential Muslim in the world. Jordan is an island of stability in the Middle East, where wars and chaos rage all around. His country survived while neighbors collapsed. And by the way, no one knows for sure whether he continues these operations today. Jordanians themselves say that even now, when they get into a taxi, they look at the driver and wonder, what if it is the king again? Now think about your own country. Most modern leaders are so disconnected from reality that they do not even know how much bread costs. And would your leader dare to go out among the people, for example, into the subway but without cameras, to hear the truth? Like the video if this story impressed you. Subscribe. Many more incredible stories are coming. Thank you for watching and see you next time.